On a cold November night in 1987, a masked man didn't rob a bank. He didn't steal millions of dollars. Instead, he stole the television screens of millions of people. He mocked the authorities, broadcasted a bizarre, chaotic message, and then vanished into thin air. 30 years later, the FBI still has absolutely no idea who did it. But the most terrifying part of this story isn't the man behind the mask. It's the sheer impossibility of the crime. According to broadcast engineers, the level of technology required to pull this off meant this wasn't just a prank. It was a highly sophisticated cyber attack, decades ahead of its time. An attack that required military-grade precision and an intimate knowledge of Chicago's broadcast infrastructure. And it all started like this. November 22nd, 1987, 9:14 p.m. Sports anchor Dan Roan is broadcasting live on WGN-TV. Then, without warning, the broadcast dies. For 15 seconds, the screen remained completely black. And then, a figure emerged. Wearing a cheap rubber Max Headroom mask, bouncing erratically in front of a rotating piece of corrugated metal. There was no voice, just a disturbing, silent performance. Down in the WGN control room, panic erupted. Engineers scrambled to regain control of their hijacked frequency. Knowing the signal was coming from somewhere outside, they bypassed the main feed and manually switched the microwave link to the John Hancock Center. The pirate was abruptly cut off. The WGN attack was dismissed as a localized fluke, a one-off. They thought the threat was over. But miles away, crosstown at PBS affiliate WTTW, the real nightmare was just beginning. At 11:15 p.m., viewers tuning into WTTW were watching a rerun of Doctor Who. Deep inside the broadcast control room, the monitors suddenly glitched. But unlike WGN, there was no engineer stationed at the Sears Tower transmitter to pull the plug. The door was wide open.
I'll get you a hot drink, miss.
This time, the pirate had the stage. For 90 surreal seconds, the masked figure hijacked the WTTW signal. He laughed frantically, mumbled incoherently, and waved a middle finger wrapped in a rubber extension. It was pure, unadulterated chaos, broadcast straight into hundreds of thousands of living rooms. And just as abruptly as it began, the pirate was gone. The transmission snapped back to the Doctor Who broadcast. And in a moment of pure, unscripted irony, the very first line spoken by the character was a perfect summary of what millions of viewers had just experienced.
As far as I can tell, a massive electric shock, he died instantly.
People simply sat in their living rooms, completely stunned. Investigators quickly realized this wasn't some kid in a basement. To overpower a commercial broadcast, the hijacker needed tens of thousands of dollars in specialized microwave transmission gear and a direct line of sight to the towers. Investigators turned their attention to the video itself. The mask was identified as a mass-produced rubber prop, available in local costume shops. And that spinning background? It wasn't some high-tech effect. It was a physical piece of corrugated metal, motorized in a small room. The sheer technical expertise required led investigators to a chilling conclusion. This wasn't a random outsider. The prime suspects were likely disgruntled television engineers, people who built the very systems they hijacked. Despite the massive federal investigation, countless interviews, and a mountain of theories, the trail went completely cold. The statute of limitations expired in 1992. To this day, the identity of the Chicago television pirate remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in broadcast history. But what exactly was happening during those 90 seconds? When investigators finally broke down the uncut footage, they realized it wasn't just random noise. It was a chaotic, targeted performance. The hacker mocked a local WGN pundit, calling him a frickin' nerd. He hummed the theme song to an obscure 1950s cartoon, Clutch Cargo. In a stroke of pure irony, he held up a Pepsi can while uttering the slogan, "Catch the Wave," a direct mockery of Coca-Cola, the very company the real Max Headroom was paid to advertise. And then, the broadcast took an even more surreal turn, ending with the hacker pulling down his pants to be spanked with a fly swatter by an unidentified accomplice dressed as a French maid. It was a bizarre inside joke that only the perpetrators understood, a chaotic masterpiece of television vandalism.
As far as I can tell, a massive electric shock. He died instantly.
In an era long before the internet, before anonymous hackers could paralyze corporations from across the globe, someone proved that the most powerful media networks in America were completely defenseless. The FBI, the FCC, and the entire weight of federal law enforcement were publicly humiliated, not by a foreign government or a sophisticated crime syndicate, but by a phantom in a cheap rubber mask wielding a fly swatter. They interviewed hundreds. They analyzed every single frame of distorted video. And they found absolutely nothing. Decades have passed. The statute of limitations has long expired. Somewhere out there, maybe still living in Chicago, maybe halfway across the world, is a person who pulled off the ultimate digital heist. Someone who can sit back in their chair, smile at the memory, and know that they hijacked the minds of millions and simply vanished into the static. What do you think happened to the man behind the mask? Leave your theories in the comments below. And if you want to unravel more dark secrets, cold cases, and internet mysteries, hit subscribe and step into the true crime tapes.